Hey everyone, welcome back. We are in the middle of chapter 4 of Hank the Cowdog the Boxer. So, Hank and Drover have jumped into the back of the pickup truck, knowing that they're not supposed to, but they found out that they're headed to town, so we'll see what kind of trouble they get into. You can't be too safe and cautious all the time. If you're too timid in this life, you miss out on all the fun and adventure. You'll just stay home and snap at flies when you get to be an old dog, and you'll look back on your life and think, all these years. I've been on this earth and I've done nothing but eat flies. You'll regret that when the opportunity comes up, and that you didn't sneak a ride into town. Drover curled up behind the cab and watched the scenery go by. I sat down and closed my eyes and just let the wind flap my ears. It felt good and restful. There for a little while I forgot all my cares and responsibilities. That lasted until we got to the highway. Loper pulled onto the blacktop and started picking up speed. The wind began to sting, and my ears flapped a little harder than I liked them to flap, and crumbs of alfalfa that were sitting in the pickup bed floor started to swirl. I laid down beside Drover. Say, before I forget, I just wanted to say thanks for all the help you gave me last night with that monster. Drover gave a shy grin. Oh, that's okay. It was the least I could do. It sure as heck was. If you'd done any leaster, you'd been fighting for the monster. The grin disappeared. Are you mad about something? Forget it. I don't want to talk. Alfalfa leaves were getting into my mouth, so I decided to sleep the rest of the way to town. Next thing I knew, we'd slowed down and were coasting down Main Street. I sat up and took in the sights. A bunch of stores and streetlights, several stop signs, a couple of town dogs loafing, and a big tumbleweed rolling right down the middle of the street. Loper drove into a parking place in front of the Waterhole Cafe beside 2 or 3 other pickups that looked like cowboy rigs. When he got out and saw us, he gave us the tongue lashing I had expected. It was no worse than usual, not bad enough to make me regret that we'd hitched the ride into town. He told us to sit, be good, and don't bark. Then he and Slim went into the cafe. For 5 or 10 minutes, we concentrated on being good, which was a real drag. Then I heard Drover go, psst. He jerked his head toward the pickup that was parked next to us. In the back end, fast asleep, was a big, ugly boxer dog. We both moved to the side of the bed and stared at him. The dog must have felt our eyes, because after a bit, his head came up and he glowered at us with a wicked expression on his face. What are you staring at? Just looking at the sights, I said. What's your name? Puddintain asked me again, and I'll tell you the same. I guess Drover didn't understand what that meant, so he asked, What's your name? John Brown. Ask me again, and I'll knock you down. Drover gave me a puzzled look, and I said, How come they have you chained up? He was tied to the headache racks of the pickup with a piece of chain, so that I won't kill anyone else's dogs. You kill dogs? No fooling, Drover asked. Just for drill. I prefer bigger stuff. That sort of ended our conversation. Puddintain went back to sleep, and I got involved with a couple of noisy flies that were bothering my ears. Next thing I knew, Drover said, What would you do if we peed on your tires? The boxer's head came up real slow, and he turned those wicked eyes on Drover. What did you say? I said, what would you do if we peed on your tires? Drover, it made me a little uneasy the way he was talking about we. The boxer sat up. Well, I'd tear your legs off and wring your neck. But how could you do that when you're chained up? Asked Drover. The boxer lifted one side of his mouth and unveiled a set of long white teeth. I'd bust the chain, but it looks pretty stout to me. Drover. It ain't stout enough. Just curious, said Drover. Big and Ugly went back to sleep, and I got back to eating flies. Then it seemed to me I heard water running somewhere. I glanced around and saw Big and Ugly's head come up too. He'd heard it. Drover had just wiped out the left rear tire and was going toward the front. It seemed to me this was poor judgment on Drover's part. The boxer sprang to his feet. Get away from my tire, Runt. No 2-bit Cowdog is going to mess up on my tires. I didn't like his tone of voice. I got up and wandered to the side of the pickup. Say there, partner, maybe I didn't hear you right. You weren't suggesting that there's any 2-bit Cowdogs around here, were you? I ain't suggesting, buddy. I'm saying you're a couple of 2-bit Cowdogs. Do you mean that as an insult or a compliment? Cowdog don't mean but one thing to me. Sorry and 2-bit. I took a deep breath. Oh dear, Drover, the death seems kind of bad all of a sudden. Why don't you wet down that other tire? He grinned, hiked up his leg, and let her rip. The boxer went nuts when he saw that. All at once, his fangs were flashing in the sunlight. He lunged against the chain and started barking. It was a big, deep roar of a bark, so loud you could feel it bouncing off your face. I waited for him to be quiet. You want to take back what you said about cow dogs? There they are. The boxer lunged against the chain and slashed the air about 6 inches from the end of my nose. Guess not. I hopped down, skipped around to the right side of the boxer's pickup, and wiped out the front and back tires. Drover and I met at the front, swapped sides, and gave each tire a second coat. Big and Ugly went berserk. He fought against the chain and roared. Let me at him, I'll kill him, just let me at him. Drover and I finished the job and hopped back into the pickup bed. When the cafe door burst open, we were asleep. What's going on out here? It's my dog, Loper. He's making all the racket. Bruno, shut up. You're disturbing the whole town. I sat up and opened my eyes. Bruno was getting a good scolding from his master, so he whined and tried to wag his stump tail. Now you lie down and be quiet. I don't want to hear another peep out of you. You know better than that. The men went back inside. I waited a minute and gave Drover the coast is clear sign. We got up and went over to the edge of the pickup. Bruno was lying flat with his eyes wide open and a couple of fangs showing beneath his lips. He was trembling with rage. Drover, I asked, have you ever seen an uglier dog than that one? He giggled. No, Hank, I never did. Me neither. Can you imagine what his poor mother must have looked like? A growl came from deep in Bruno's throat. I don't like his pointed ears, said Drover. You know why they're pointed, don't you? When boxers are born, they have such big, floppy ears that a surgeon has to cut off 2 yards of hide, and then they whack off the tail, and then they put the poor pup's face into a shop vise and smash it until it looks just like poor Bruno's. No kiddin'. Yup, and as you might expect, it affects the brain. It smashes it down to the size of a dog biscuit. The growl in Bruno's throat was growing louder. That's why boxers are so dumb. Brain's been smallered. It's the mark of the breed. They tell me that you can't get papers on a boxer unless he's too dumb to walk across the street. They give him a test, see, and all the ones that flunk become registered boxers. By this time, the growl had become a steady roar, and that's why you never see boxers work cattle. They're just too frazzling dumb to hold down a steady job. Bruno's eyes were cloudy, as if they were filled with smoke from a fire burning inside. His teeth were snapping together. Maybe he was crushing imaginary bones. Why would anybody want a dog that was so big and dumb and ugly, Drover asked. I've often wondered about that myself, said I. And the only answer I can come up with is that maybe if a guy had a piece of log chain that he didn't know what to do with, he'd buy a boxer to hang it on. That did it. Bruno erupted again and lunged at us, his mouth wide open and full of teeth. I got a real good look at his tonsils, which appeared to be a little inflamed. I jerked my head at Drover, and he was sending up a line of Z's when the cowboys came out again. Bruno, what in the world? Bad dog, bad dog. Why can't you just lie still and shut up like these other dogs? Bruno whimpered. Well, I guess I'd better go. Bruno's on a snort. I'll see you later. When the pickup drove off, me and Drover sat up and grinned and waved goodbye to our new friend. Bruno was so mad his eyes were crossed and foam dripped off his chops. That's what makes being a cowdog worthwhile. Teamwork. Guys, thanks for joining us for Chapter 4 of Hank the Cowdog. Next time, we're going to be reading Another Bloody Murder, Chapter 5. I can't wait to get started, and I'll see you then. Bye.